Hi guys, welcome back to another video, and this one's going to be a little bit different from my recent videos, not that I put that many out, but this is going to be looking through my Nintendo 3DS collection. Not really had it out for some time. I've just moved house, so I thought what better opportunity than to have a quick look through the consoles that I've got. I've got a couple of consoles, a couple of accessories just because they're hanging around, and then get into the games. Got maybe 45, 46, maybe 50 games to run through, so this could go on. So without further ado, let's get into the consoles itself. And here is the first one, my favourite, Hyrule Edition, new 3DS. The box is still in great condition. That's something that's really good about Nintendo packaging, is that they do make awesome boxes these days. I think they know that they're going to be collectors. Collectors are going to want them, and value will hold on them. And here's the console itself. Awesome sort of murky gold with that perfect emblem in the background there in light. It's kind of a matte finish, but it's got that glossy plastic, so it kind of shines up real well, and again, really good condition. On the inside, it's a standard 3DS, so this is just kind of the carry case there, as you can see my reflection. But I won't bother turning it on because I haven't used it in probably 3 years, so there's not much else really to say. Obviously, in this stage of its life or retirement, you should know all about this if you're going to be watching this video. So then on to my second console, which was the first one I ever got, and the carry case for this one's a bit murky, but it is the Animal Crossing variant. So New Leaf, as that came out, that's when I decided to jump in, and this isn't an official case. It's a shame that it has got dirty and kind of lost its colour over the years, but here's the console itself. It is an XL-DS 3DS, but it's not one of the new ones like the previous console I just showed you. So it's the original one without the circle pad and a weaker 3DS function on it, or 3D function on it. And also, I think I remember that snapping did break and I had to send it back to Nintendo, and they issued me with a new one. So it was an inferior system, but I got this when it was new, obviously, and spent a whole ton of hours playing the Animal Crossing game, and then all the other games that we'll run through shortly. Speaking of which, let's just quickly run through a couple of accessories, and by a couple I literally mean this one more importantly, which is the Circle Pad Pro. So it was designed for obviously the 3DS XL and just a normal 3DS, and just sort of fit in really snug. Actually makes holding the system far better, and I do really enjoy playing with this accessory. In fact, I played the first game. I will jump straight ahead, I'm kind of getting a bit carried away, but Metal Gear Solid 3, first time I ever played Metal Gear Solid 3 as a huge fan of the series was on a 3DS, because I didn't have a PS2 when it came out, and I had already moved on to the Xbox, and I played the whole thing and watched all the cutscenes. It's a huge game on this system with 3D on and off intermittently, but the circle pad made a massive difference. And yeah, people give some stick to the system, or they used to, because it didn't have a second analog stick, and this really did remedy that fault, and it is so comfortable to hold. Sometimes I find myself playing games that weren't designed for the system with that in anyway, because it just felt a lot better. Moving on, just a carry case, not really that exciting, but I had it out and I had it about, and before I put my Zelda console away, I thought I'd just quickly share. I'm not going to show you the games there because we'll get onto them when I get the boxes out, but this was a Hori case, so I don't know if it was officially licensed, but it worked really well. It's been away on different holidays, aeroplanes, trains with me, and it's an awesome carry case. If you still have a 3DS or will get one eventually, I'd recommend getting a carry case like this. And then finally, the only other accessory I got is just a charger, still in box. I picked that up for like £2 or something in a bargain basement. So, actually, one other accessory is this Zelda It's kind of a spoiler here because I'm showing you, basically I have this game. So this was a pre-order exclusive for the Link Between Worlds, and it's a game carry case. Basically you could carry 5 games in it, and I played that again into the microphone. Obviously it needs new batteries, but it used to play the jingle, the Zelda unboxing jingle. But it's a really cool little carry case there, just to store a few more games, especially if you are traveling. You just stick that in your bag as well. Now on to the games, the main attraction of this video, I guess. So I've got a couple of big box games, and then we'll run through the standard boxes. First up, big box game is Kid Icarus Uprising. I actually have never opened this box. There's no Nintendo seal on it. There's some plastic seals on it. I think I ordered it off Amazon whilst it was still quite cheap, and I just never got around to playing it. I kind of wanted to keep it as an unopened big box game. I don't know if that will up the value at some point, or if there's any way to prove that I haven't opened it. But I have played the game on emulation, and it works quite well with the mouse to control Kid Icarus. I forget his actual name, or if it is just Kid Icarus. You have to use the touch screen as kind of your aiming, and then the control stick to move him around. But it is a really cool game. It probably is a lot better, and this big box comes with a stand just to make controlling your action a lot more smoother. So there were some complaints, I think, when the game initially released, that it was giving people hand cramp, but this kind of solved that, and I didn't hear any complaints about this method of control. Next big box game, and there is only a couple of these, is Batman 2, or Lego Batman 2. Actually a pretty cool game, and this one comes there bundled. Again, I don't think I've opened this one. I kind of bought it for my daughter when she was still pretty young. This comes obviously with a little figure there. I'm pretty sure it was never opened because she didn't want to open it because she thought it was a cool little collector thing. I think this one is well reviewed back at the time, but it's one of the few games out of the 45 to 50 games that I haven't actually played. In fact, it might be the only one. The next one here is one that I hadn't played a huge amount, but I did buy for my daughter. She was probably, I don't know, 7 or 8 when these games came out, and this is Animal Crossing. Happy Home Designer, so a spin-off obviously from New Leaf with all the success that had on the system. This one comes with a AR card reader, so the new 3DSs could read them on the console, but the old ones didn't, so this let you have that ability. I never used that, but I have played the game with my daughter. And basically, instead of building your town and your village and doing quests, you're going around and decorating different homes and environments like schools and shops, etc. It's quite good actually. 2 more big box games here, and this one is again one of the rare ones that I haven't opened. I think it's literally only those 2 big box games that I haven't opened and played. This one being Chibi Robo Ziplash. I think this gets pretty much poor reviews. It's a 2D platformer instead of the GameCube's 3D original platformer, but I thought it was fairly cheap again, and I really like the amiibo, although never gotten him out. It is kind of a cool collector piece. I probably won't ever get him out, but the 2D platforming game actually looks kind of good in my opinion on videos I've seen, so it's probably when I pop in the emulator. And yeah, it's a bit of a shame we haven't seen this guy since. I'm sure he'd make a good game on the Switch. And then the last game that I've got in the big boxes is Majora's Mask. Again, you can tell maybe that I'm a bit of a Zelda fan, or at least I used to be more so than I am now. So this big box is pretty awesome. It came with a Skull Kid figurine, as well as a pre-order bonus, which I have somewhere, but I can't find him at the moment. But it came with this metal tin to keep your game in, which is actually a really nice different thing. Unfortunately there's no text on the side, but the actual quality of this tin is pretty awesome, and I'd much prefer it over the traditional game case, which is probably in the stack we're going to go through in a minute anyway, but as you can see there. I didn't actually finish this game. It's the first time I tried to play Majora's Mask, having not played it on the N64. It was kind of cool, but in parts I felt like I needed a guide to really see where I was going. Okay, on to the normal boxes now, and I'm going to just start with Metal Gear Solid 3 because I'd already briefly spoken about it then. As I said, it's the first time I played this game, and what an amazing game. And from the reviews I was reading at the time, actually plays kind of better, although the graphics were downplayed a little bit to get on the system. But it was the first time you could crouch in the game, and I know that eventually did get brought into other re-releases of the game, like the HD collection. So pretty awesome box as well, with a different cover art in the back there. Always liked how these cases, or some of them, had this kind of window effect and you can see through. Next one is Spirit Camera, The Cursed Memoir. This is a pretty unique game in the fact that it's actually driven off of AR, so the 3DS had a camera built into it, as you're probably aware, but this is one of the few games, or fully fledged games. There are a lot of indie or downloadable games that did this, but it's one of the few games where you use the camera to look around your own apartment or building or wherever you're playing it, and basically the game would represent these ghosts or beings in your house on the screen, and you'd have to then sort of capture them. And there was a whole story around it. Project Zero, I think it got re-released on consoles, but obviously without the AR function and just in more generic sort of rooms and stuff. And again, the case there, if you can see that, it's got eyes in the background, so pretty cool game. Some cool artwork it came with as well. So the only downside with this is the camera on the 3DS wasn't the best, so you had to play it in really dark conditions, and I don't know, when it's too dark, you have to spin 360 around the room sometimes, and you can't really see what you're doing. Kind of made it tricky. Moving on, it's one I wanted to play with a girlfriend as well as my daughter at the time. It's one of the Professor Layton games. I'm not entirely sure how many of these were released on the 3DS. I know there were a bunch on the normal DS. This one follows the same kind of route. It's got a cool art style that I really enjoy, and then has you know, the puzzles, you play through it. It's kind of like a graphic novel, but with puzzles. Most of these games are complete in box because they were bought new and not secondhand, but a few might not be. Again, this is highly rated, I believe, and it was a pretty good game for the time. I didn't complete it because I got a bit bored of doing the puzzles on my own. Here's a quick one, secondhand obviously, it's still got all the stickers on, and I think a lot of these game prices have gone up, especially on some of the more harder to get ones. But this one's probably not the case. Rayman Family Pack, so you have 3 games in this. Rayman Origins, which is an awesome 2D game. Then Rabbids 3D, which I think came out on the Nintendo DS originally. Rabbids Rumble I never even tried, so I think I literally just picked this up because it was £8 in CEX. Thought, why not give it a little bash. Next one is one of the all-time classics, Star Fox 64 3D. I'm not going to spend too long talking about this. It's basically a remake of Star Fox 64, or Lilac Wars, I think it was over here. I can't really remember the 3D name for it. Anyway, it's I don't know, it had it got all positive reviews, but some people did moan that it wasn't a fully fledged new game, and I can kind of get that. But in terms of it being a remake and a remaster, it certainly did what it said on the tin, and the 3D actually works really well on it. Next game is a launch game for the system. I picked it up super cheap. I think it probably is still one of the cheapest games. Pilot Wings Resort, actually really good game that no one talks about. It's not as good as the Pilot Wings on the N64 or the SNES, but it all takes place in the Woohoo Island, I think it was, from the Wii Sports Resorts games, when they were trying to build that branding. And so you do multiple different things through the island. Fairly short, which is probably the main problem of this, but it's a fun little blast to just kill a couple of hours with. Next game here, as we get into some Mario branded games, Mario Tennis Open. Again, picked this up when it was about 15 quid cheap. I don't know the price of it now. It's not one of the best Mario games. In fact, it is a bit annoying. They've literally only ever, don't know if there's one on the GameCube, but to my mind, the one on the N64 is literally the only good Mario Tennis game. This one is a bit of a letdown. It's just too basic, and they try to introduce too many special abilities and features. I just want to play some good tennis. I know the one on the Game Boy Color is actually really good, but that's almost not a Mario Tennis game. Again, Mario Kart 7. in this display case. I think I've got this display case as well as the normal case, so I don't know why I picked this up. I think I probably just asked if I could take a display case at the same time and they let me. So again, there's not a huge amount to say about Mario Kart 7, everybody knows about it. I had some points I didn't use, that's annoying because I was using them. But yeah, it's Mario Kart. It's not my favourite Mario Kart, it's probably quite far down the list actually, but still a good game. Next up we've got Disney's Epic Mickey Power of Illusion. This is a 2D side-scrolling game with some kind of 3D sprites. Actually a really cool game. It's kind of, you do have to backtrack a bit. It's a kind of a bit Castlevania inspired and very different from the console games that came out. I think this did get kind of ported over as a 2D game. But a good game nevertheless. I didn't finish it because it got a bit tedious with all the backtracking as you unlock. You do play, I think, as some of the bad guys in it as you defeat them and unlock them. Can't really remember, but it was a good game. Another 2D game here. I went through a phase where I got really into some of the Cartoon Network animated shows. And at the same time they were kind of doing a lot of spin-offs, this being one. Regular show, Mordecai and Rigby in 8-Bit Land. It's fine, it was super cheap. It's a 2-3 hour game, and in my mind if you pay £10 and you complete a game, you see everything it has to offer within sort of 3-4 hours or even 2 hours, it doesn't bother me. I think I've got good value for money there. So side-scrolling game is fairly easy. I guess you'd say it's maybe Mega Man inspired as opposed to Mario, but it's kind of a blend of all that. Some good graphics and follows the show really well. Next up, another classic, I guess, Pokemon X. I'm not a huge Pokemon fan. Used to love it back when I was a kid and Red and Blue came out and then Yellow came out. And then Heart Gold, or no, just Gold. I played a hell of a lot out of that. Then I kind of fell out of flavour with it, as all the games were basically the same. Pick this one back up because they let you start with the original starters, or almost start with the original starters after about an hour of gameplay, and it's a return to form. I'm not that keen on the mega evolutions that you do in battle. Other than that though, this game is really good. I recommend this if you are like me and I haven't played a Pokemon game since this one. I know the new ones are supposed to be pretty good, but this one was back to form and has a lot of nostalgia. Here's an interesting Nintendo developed game, and I say that because it's Paper Mario Sticker Star. I was about to say that the wrong way around there. I say it's interesting because it kind of got panned at the day. Obviously it's not Thousand Year Door on GameCube, which is a game I haven't played, to be honest, but this game is actually a really fun little, it's obviously RPG, but it's not really that in depth. It's kind of got that platformy side of it. It's got a fun wacky story. It's just a really laid out game, and I played it kind of almost non-stop. I was really hooked on the gameplay of it, the turn-based battling and collecting the stickers to then use in battle. I thought worked really well, and the comedy in the game, although very basic and childlike, was fun. You know, it killed some time on the buses and on trains, so I think this is a good game. Here's actually probably one of my favourite games on the system, and that is Donkey Kong Country Returns 3D. So this is a remake or remaster of the game that came out on the Wii, and they've done an incredible job. It kind of shows how powerful this system is, or maybe how underpowered the Wii was. That this has got literally all the features. It actually looks better on the small screens than the Wii games do. And yes, it's a fantastic Donkey Kong Country game if you ever played the SNES versions. This was a rebirth of that, and I think it's way better than Tropic Freeze as well. Here is the Mario Kart 7 box. I'm not going to talk about that again, as we already did. It's not one of my preferred Mario Karts. The DS game is, if you're wondering. Here is a bit of a throwaway game here. I did go through a stage, although I kind of like wrestling games, or used to like wrestling games, a long time ago as a kid. This is a bit of a throwaway game. It was really hard to get, and I found a good deal on it. So it's WWE All-Stars, obviously. It's an arcade brawler, basically. I didn't really play it that much. The combo system in the game didn't really do much for me. It was kind of convoluted, but also super basic, and I don't know, I kind of wanted a more wrestling based game. Here is again one of the main reasons why I wanted to get the Circle Pad Pro. I actually completed this game before I got the Circle Pad Pro, and that's Resident Evil Revelations there, obviously. It's such a good game. I think it got highly reviewed and ported to pretty much everything you could possibly port it to. Unfortunately, the sequel didn't come out on the system, and I played it on, I think, PS3. I also played it a bit on the PC, just didn't do the same thing. I don't know why this game just really hit all those old Resident Evil vibes, but in a new, fresh, actiony way, but still keeping that horror. Really cool game if you haven't played it, but like horror games and like action games, I'd really recommend jumping on this one. There is also a big box version where you get Circle Pad Pro in it, and I wish I picked that up at the time, but didn't. Again there, as I said, I went through a phase of the Cartoon Network cartoons being pretty awesome. This is Adventure Time. Explored the dungeon, but I don't know why, or because I don't know. It's not one of the best. They had a really good Adventure Time game on the normal DS. This one's a dungeon crawler, actually has loads of bugs, and I'd steer well clear of this one. Here is quite an interesting game then. SMT, Devil Summoner, Soul Hackers. I'm struggling to speak after recording all this in one go. So I say it's interesting. I'm not this system. I've got a couple SMT games on it, and I kind of got into the series a little bit, but really surface level. So to my mind, you're either a massive SMT fan or you're not a fan. So maybe I'm not a fan, but a few of these games I really love, and I think this was a remake of a SNES game that never came out in Europe, or potentially even America. I think it was Japanese only. I think so. There's one of them is. I can't remember if it's this one or another one. And this is kind of cool, RPG obviously, game with these cool creatures and demons. I couldn't really get into this one, which is why I think it was the remake, because they didn't change very much of the systems, and I got lost very, very quickly. But it is a cool series to get into. This next one is probably the worst game I've got on the system. Cartoon Network Punch Time Explosion. It's basically a Smash Brothers rip-off, but done really poorly. It's kind of cool just to see those characters, but I've probably spent 30 seconds playing it. Next game is much better though. Ultimate NES Remix in a physical form. So this is the two games. I think there was NES Remix and then NES Remix 2. That came out around this sort of time, and I think they were download only, but then they made this physical game on the 3DS. I think maybe it came out physical on the Wii U as well at some point, but it's a really cool mix mash. You have very quick stages where you have to achieve some kind of objective, and then further on you mix games up, so you'll have Zelda in Mario World, or as you can see there, Link's in Donkey Kong. So it's a unique thing, but it's all really fast paced, so each stage is like 5 to 10 seconds. So I didn't ever complete it because the stages were too short for me, and I couldn't really sink my teeth into anything. Next game here is again another classic for the system. Actually, it will be well remembered. I don't know if it got remade on the Switch recently, or if that was just the original Luigi's Mansion. But this one takes Luigi's Mansion and just makes it bigger and better, I think. I love the comedy in it. I played the third game in the series, and I'd say that this version is way better. I didn't really get on with the Switch game. This is peak Luigi's Mansion in my eyes. I really liked all the atmosphere and the elements of it, the comedy in the game, and also the controls on the system, kind of well thought out and designed for the 3DS. The next one here doesn't really need much talking about, obviously, Zelda Ocarina of Time, but in 3D. Again, probably the perfect remake. Box is a little bit dirty, which is a shame. Easily clean though. Again, nothing else to say about this. It's the way you want to do it. It has got the gyro controls, which work really well when you zoom into first person with the slingshot and other features. And yeah, it's just the exact way that you'd want a game remade. Well, it's not, yeah, I guess it's upscaled is probably the better way to put it. They haven't really changed anything about it, but made the graphics a bit better and the game run much smoother. Here's a really cool game actually. It's quite difficult, and I believe it's still really cheap. It was really cheap when I bought it, and it's just simply called Shinobi. cool box art on there, and the game is a 2D action game, I guess is the only way to really describe it, but it's very straightforward. It's much like the Shinobi games on the Mega Drive and Master System, but the graphics are actually some of the best on the system. Although it's 2D, it's all 3D environments, and yeah, I'd really recommend this. It's quite a hard game, so be prepared to spend a lot of time repeating similar parts of stages because checkpoints aren't that plentiful. I haven't made it super far, maybe halfway through the game, and I just got a bit too frustrated with it, but the visuals and the gameplay itself is all pretty spot on. It's definitely, when you do die, it's definitely your fault that you've died as well, because the controls are really well thought out. Here's a game that I actually think is really good, and it's Madden Football. I am a big sports fan, and I am a big NFL fan, and being a huge Madden fan on the PS2 and Xbox days, this game is basically, as I spin it around, this game's basically that version in terms of the gameplay on the field. It's the old PS2, maybe 04, 05 days, stripped back really, and it works really well on the system. Unfortunately, there's no franchise mode, it's just a single season that you play, and they didn't release any other Maddens, it was just this one. It's a bit of a shame really, because like I said, it's actually a really good on-field game, as the console ports at this time, or the console versions at this time, weren't doing particularly well to the critics. Here we have the other Zelda Majora's Mask box. Again, nothing really to say about this. Art is really cool on it, but just couldn't, I did complete it, or I almost completed it, but I just couldn't really get into it without using a guide, which is a shame. Here is an interesting game, Virtue's Last Reward. Again, cool box art. This is interesting because I think it's a sequel to 999, a game on the DS. However, I don't know if it really follows on from that, because I didn't really play it. Essentially, there's 9 guys, or 9 people, and they all find themselves woken up, and they're locked in this futuristic sci-fi environment, and you have to figure out that none of them remember how they got there. You have to figure out what's going on, and basically how to escape, as they then, it's almost like Saw, they start getting spoken to by a higher power, and yeah, there's multiple paths to take. It is more like a novel book played out, but your choices do matter, and it's really good. I think it's been re-released on consoles and other handhelds. Well worth looking out. I think there is also a third game now as well, and there's multiple endings, so I picked up most of the endings but not all of them. Here is Tales of the Abyss. Now this is a funny game because I haven't really ever been into these type of Japanese RPGs, and this is a very westernized Japanese RPG. It is good. I just kind of get stuck on these type of games because at some point you have to grind, and with this one I got about halfway through and the grind just became too much for me. Couldn't get past a boss fight and didn't want to just go back fighting the same characters again. The story was a bit tedious and a bit cringe as well, but quite an interesting game, and I know there are a lot of collectors for those Tales games. Here's another quick one, Street Fighter 4 3D edition. This game plays really well on the system. I don't know how many frames per second it is. It feels super smooth though. Came out early in the release of the system, and yeah, it's as good as you can imagine being on this system or any other handheld for that matter. Plays really well. Online mode actually worked fairly well, I believe. Here is the game that we spoiled earlier. I'm revealing with the chest. Link Between Worlds. Actually, this is my favorite Zelda. Breath of the Wild is pretty awesome, but this is one of the few games that I played and I completed and I 100%ed, and then I wanted to jump straight back into New Game Plus and keep playing, which is what I did do, although I didn't complete New Game Plus. Or hero mode it is, where it's more difficult because the enemies take more damage and you've got less hearts. Just an amazing game. I think everybody kind of knows about this. Again, another game that everybody knows about, but this one's a bit more underrated. Super Mario 3D Land. It is the, I guess, official 3D Mario on the system, although it's still kind of 2D. Well, it's definitely 3D, but the stages are really small and it's kind of more built for on the go, which is exactly what the system is designed for. So the stages are quite short. It is easy, but it's not so easy that you don't want to play it, if you know what I mean. I think, well, actually this is one of the few games that I also 100%ed and made a point to go back to every level and pick up every item and red coin and hidden coin. And yeah, I think this is a really good game, and it's one of the early games where the 3D actually worked really well on it as well. I think this should be ported, if it hasn't already, to the Switch. This one's not very good, so I'll whiz over it. Driver 3D, or Driver Revenge 3D. Again, I kind of picked it up because it was cheap and just wanted to see what it was about. There is a story where I don't really know what happens. It's not a very good game. I think I completed it in like 2 hours one evening. I would not recommend it even for a $5. Here's a cool game. Again, a bit more along the lines of the Paper Mario. It's kind of like they kind of crossed paths at some stage. These Mario and Luigi games, there was a few on the Game Boy Advance and a couple on the normal DS, and then this one. I think there might have been another one after this as well. But this was really cool. Role-playing game with that kind of same battle mode system that was in Star Sticker. Sticker Star. Fun game to just play and just zone out with. The story in it's okay, but nothing major. It's what you expect. It's an interesting game. I wouldn't say it's good, but it is Splinter Cell. I can't remember which version of Splinter Cell this is, but it is a full version of Splinter Cell recreated for the small system. Has a awkward control scheme, I think, because you have to use all the buttons and the control stick, of course, as well as the touchscreen. So I didn't play a load of this one when I got it, but it was cheap. I think it might have been a release game, actually. Yeah, so this is the one game that kind of did get me into the series. SMT, that is, we're back on. And this is Devil Survivor Overclocked. So this was actually a normal DS game that got remade on the 3DS. And this one is actually really good in the sense that I believe the DS game didn't have any voice acting, and this is fully voice acted. Or most of it's fully voice acted, and the story in this one's actually really cool. Basically, you're in Tokyo, you're a bunch of school kids, or one school kid with some friends, and the apocalypse starts happening and all these demons break free, but you've got these DS-shaped devices that mean you can speak to some of the creatures, and then you can start to collect them and battle them, and it's kind of Pokemon for grown-ups, really. Really awesome game. I want to start playing this again, actually. This is one of the reasons why I wanted to dig through my storage collection of these games, is to replay this game. There is a sequel as well, which I played on an emulator recently, not as good as this original game. And this game now I think is like 150 quid, so I'm glad I picked it up way back in the day when it was about 30 quid. It's really hard to get hold of, but I'd really recommend it if you've got maybe you've got a handheld PC that can emulate it, or I'd even play it on the PC and just emulate it myself if you don't want to shell out the bucks for this, because it's a really good game. Codename Steam. It's more of a tactical RPG kind of game. So yeah, basically it's all steampunk environments, which is cool, and it's all 3D. So a lot of these turn-based games, when they're on a grid, are usually like 2D. I think Final Fantasy did a few of them. Reminds me of Advance Wars, that kind of vibe, but in 3D here. So really cool game. XCOM as well. It's a bit more like XCOM, I guess, except for you do like over-the-shoulder view of the map as well as up high. A fun game. It got a bit tedious towards halfway through. I did complete it, and for some reason I got 2 boxes of the Ocarina of Time. I guess maybe this came with the 3DS? No, it couldn't have. I don't know why I've got 2 boxes. I literally must have pre-ordered one and then picked up another box, I guess. I have got no idea. But nothing else really to say about this. This is quite an interesting game. This did get ported over to consoles as well, I think, as download only. If you remember the Batman games, of course you probably do, that were Arkham Asylum, Arkham, I don't know, all the Arkham ones basically. They made this for the 3DS and Vita. It's called Blackgate, and it's kind of got that combat system built into it, but it's more side-scrolling 2D with like some sweeping cameras that make it feel like it's 3D. It's actually a really good game, but a little bit easy, and you kind of lose that open world atmosphere. Now this is a somewhat interesting, or at least the game maybe not itself, although it's got loads of fans. Fire Emblem, sorry, Fate's Conquest. I only picked this up because I had the original Fire Emblem game for the 3DS as a download only for free game, and I absolutely loved the combat of it. I couldn't care about the story at all, and I skipped most of the story on that. and I thought the combat was so good I picked this one up because, again, I think they're very well reviewed, and people love this series. I know there's loads of these games now, but I just couldn't get into this one. The combat didn't really, I don't know, it's the same, but I just, there was something about it. I don't know if it was too much of the same or what, but I couldn't get into this version. But the original one that came out on the 3DS was awesome. 3 more games then, as I dwindle down here. It's Ghost Recon Shadow Wars. Again, another tactical game. I found the 3DS was really good for tactical games. Again, this is like a grid-based action RPG tactical strategy game. But set in the world of Tom Clancy. Obviously Ghost Recon here is, I think this was a release game actually, and is actually really good. You've got a bunch of different classes with an interesting story where you kind of follow their route through this war, this conflict, and you upgrade them as you go along, and the gameplay itself is actually really well thought out. Quite challenging towards the end, especially on the higher difficulties, but cheap and well worth a look. Okay, another Adventure Time game here, Secret of the Nameless Kingdom. Don't even really remember this. I think this one's more like Zelda 2 on the NES, so it's like a top-down action game, but I think I completed it twice actually, which is strange. Actually, I think I completed it. I don't think I did complete it actually. I think this one had a few bugs as well. I think it's the one on the original DS is the one to get. If you're into Adventure Time, go and find that one. I can't remember the name of it. This one is more like Zelda now that I am thinking about it. And I think it was okay, but a couple of bugs and a couple of funny puzzles that just really didn't do too much. And the last game here, I think this one's maybe rare, I'm not entirely sure. Cave Story 3D, a really cool game. I'd recommend probably. There's probably other better ways to play it now, as this has been released on everything. Every kind of system you can imagine, and keeps getting updates to it on PC, I believe. I'm surprised there's no sequel. I don't know, the story itself isn't that good, but the way you get around, it's like Metroidvania. Very cool game. And I did complete this again, and I think I did start playing New Plus game mode eventually, but never got all the way through that because the story is a bit cheesy. Gameplay itself is cool though. And yeah, that's it. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video. I feel like I've rattled on. I probably got to edit quite a bit out, but let me know if you enjoyed this. I'm getting a lot more of my old collection out of storage, and if you'd like to see more of these, feel free to leave something in the comments to let me know, and make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.